Let's start seated. And if there are any props you would like, you can just have them near you to use. Start by just noticing your breath. If you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. If you want to keep your eyes open, that's totally fine too. You might just find a point on the ground or somewhere to rest your gaze. You're just noticing your breath as it is. Noticing the quality of your breath. Are your breaths short and shallow, or are they long and smooth, or somewhere in between? Does it feel rough and labored to breathe, or can you find some ease there? And then see if you can direct your breath into your back. So, breathing a little more fully into your back, maybe taking a little deeper breath each time. Just seeing if you can direct it towards your back so that you can feel your ribs expanding in your back. And then try directing it towards your left side, the left side of your chest and back. So that maybe you can feel things expanding more on that side. And as you're trying this, see if you can find some ease. So it doesn't have to be forceful. It doesn't have to be, well, it might be awkward, but it doesn't have to be particularly strong. You don't have to use a lot of effort. Just notice if it's possible. And then see if you can direct your breath towards your right side. And the same thing, trying to find a little bit of ease, even in the middle of what might feel like a slightly awkward or maybe impossible task. You might notice that you really have to direct your attention towards where you're aiming to send your breath. And once you've tried that for a while, try directing your breath towards the front of your chest. And then as you're ready, try directing your breath more equally towards all of those parts so that maybe you can feel your chest, your sides, and your back all expanding a little bit on each breath, and then contracting a little each time you exhale. And again, see if you can find some ease in this. So you may be breathing with more attention and breathing a little deeper than you normally do. But can you do it in a way that doesn't feel stressful or forceful or too effortful? Finding a balance between a little bit of focus and effort and also some ease. And as you continue to breathe like that, I have a quote I would like to read to you. Find something about you that you like and focus on that. If I don't like my face, if I don't like my skin, if I don't like my weight, I think to myself, I have nice teeth. And it may just start with that one tooth. Look at that tooth. That's a nice tooth, man. And then once you can accept that little thing about yourself, you can accept you for who you are. By Bob the Drag Queen, who is one of my favorite performers and a person I think has a lot of wisdom to offer. Today, our theme is Astea. You can continue to breathe like that if you like, if it's feeling really focused and nice for you. Astea is a concept in yoga that means it can be translated as non-stealing or as non-devaluing. So essentially, it asks us to look at how we value things. It asks us to be mindful of how we navigate the world and how the world is organized in many ways. So, like, non stealing is really simple. Don't take things that aren't yours, but not just objects. Consider the value of other people's time, their ideas, their peace. And then thinking on a larger scale, how resources are allotted in the world. Who has enough? It really asks us to look at our own lives and notice, do we have enough? And if we're always trying to get more, if we're always wanting more, where does that want come from? Are we really lacking? And if we have extra, what are we doing with the extra that we have? So in many ways, Astea asks us to really think about what is valuable, where we assign value, how we assign value, and then to look around and see what is not being valued, who is not being valued, and are there ways that we can work towards more equality, more equity, and ultimately liberation, so that that idea that everyone is valuable, everyone is equal, everyone is deserving is not just an idea anymore. And sometimes I think one of the nice ways where we can start with this is to look at the ways that we tend to, sometimes with our internal voice, sometimes with our actions, we sometimes devalue ourselves, telling ourselves we're not good enough in certain ways. So maybe during practice today, we'll start with that. Just noticing, are there ways that you can move through practice today and give yourself a little pat on the back? So as you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them. Take your time transitioning into a more comfortable seated position. So you've been in the same one for a while now. Interlace your hands, and then using your knuckles to bending at the wrists and using your knuckles to draw a Mobius band shape. go ahead and start finding some movement in your wrists. So you're just waking them up a little bit, getting them to move around. And then see, can you move them in the other direction? So I've been kind of moving mine away from me, forward and away from me. I'm going to try moving them back towards me. And then you can pause, let go of them, maybe wiggle your fingers and shake your wrists gently. Then make your way into tabletop. And so if being in tabletop is uncomfortable for your wrists, there's lots of options. You can come onto your fists. You could place blocks under your hands or under your forearms. And once you're in tabletop, come into your cow pose by dropping your stomach down, maybe tipping your chin up, tilting your tailbone up, and then move into cat arch through your back, tuck your tail, tuck your chin. And then move between cat and cow at your own pace. And can you look for some movement here that feels good to you? And can you offer that good feeling to yourself in a way that feels like you're being kind towards yourself? And if you would like to turn these cat cows into barrel rolls, the next time you have your back arched, you might roll your ribs over towards the right and then down and then over towards the left and up, moving around as if you had a barrel around you and you were trying to use your body to come into contact with the entirety of the sides of that barrel. And if you've been going in just one direction, you might pause and go in the other direction. When you're ready, come back to center and make your way up to standing in any way you like. If you would like to walk your hands forward, curl your toes under, come into downward dog, you might do that. And then from downward dog, make your way into a forward fold and roll your spine up. Take your time getting all the way up to vertical. And if you're dizzy once you get there, squeeze your palms together. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths. And then release your hands. If you have a place to put your hand that is stable, we're going to do some balancing next. And you might want to take a little bit of the balance out of it so you can focus on your hips. So when you're ready, bring your weight into your right leg, lift your left knee up. And turn your left knee in and then draw it up and around and out. So you're again drawing a Mobius band shape and really focusing on this movement coming from your hip. And if it's uncomfortable, can you breathe through that? If it hurts, change it so it doesn't hurt. If you can find a place that feels good, like sometimes for me, a little bit lower in a certain spot feels really nice. If you can find a place for you that feels good, stick there for a bit. And you could offer that good feeling to yourself. See if you can really appreciate it. Another option would be maybe you consider offering up that good feeling just quietly internally to someone you love. When you're ready, you can drop that leg down. If you need to shake out your standing leg, say thanks. You can do that. And take your time transitioning to side two. So grounding down through your left leg, doing the same thing with your right knee, turning it in, drawing it up and around and out, down, up, around, and in. That same Mobius band shape. And again, can you look for something within this movement that really feels good? And if you can find something that feels good, is there someone you would like to consider quietly internally offering that good feeling towards? Someone you love. You can release that. Maybe wiggle your hips around a little bit, pat your hips and say thank you. And then when you're ready, come back to the first side. So ground down through your right leg. Maybe place your hand at a wall, lift your left knee, and keeping your knee, aiming to keep your knee right where it is, point your toes and stir the pot with your foot. So you can go in either direction. And you might place a hand on that hip, that bent knee side on the left side. Just notice, like, can you feel your hip working here? Maybe. And then pause and go in the opposite direction if you haven't already. You want to make sure to stir the pot well. And then pause, drop that down, shake anything out that needs shaking, and go on to the second side when you're ready. If you haven't switched directions, stir in the opposite direction. And then release that. Step your feet out a little bit, soften to your knees, and roll your hips around in one direction. And as you do this, maybe look for something that feels good. So, like maybe when your hip is over here, it feels nice, and you kind of just like stay there for a moment before continuing on. And if you find something that feels good in this movement, maybe you could consider thinking about, is there someone you don't really know that well, an acquaintance or someone you know of, who sticks in your mind a little, and maybe you could offer this good feeling up internally towards that person, someone you feel pretty neutral about. And as you're moving, can you take some pretty deep breaths? If you haven't reversed the direction of your hip circles, go ahead and do that. And then take your time coming back to center. Come on back to the back of your mat. And we are going to be doing some balancing here. So if being at the back of your mat and traversing your mat isn't going to work for you during this, that's fine. You can stay in one place and place your hand at a wall. But one option that we're going to have is to traverse our mat. So if you are feeling stable enough, ground down through your right leg, lift your left knee, pause there with your knee lifted, and then take a step out and come into a lunge, a little bit shorter than you normally would. And then bend through your back knee. So you're in this lunge. If you would like to try lifting one or both arms, you might do that. Then step forward or bring your foot back. Find mountain. Ground down to your left leg. Lift your right knee. Balance for a moment. And when you're ready, step that foot forward into a short lunge. Bend through your back knee. So you're in this short hovering lunge. And you might notice what muscles have to work to keep you here. It may be your quads are talking to you. Maybe you lift one or both arms. And then step both legs together. And if you have traversed your mat, your options now are either turn around and go back the same way you came to the front, or you might try grounding down through your left leg, lifting your right knee, pausing for a moment, and stepping backwards. A short lunge here, bending through your back leg, finding that short bent knee lunge. Anything you want to do with your arms, maybe a hand at the wall, maybe lifting your arms. And when you're ready, stepping your front foot back. So you're in your regular stance, grounding down through your right leg, lifting your left knee. And when you're ready, stepping your left leg back, short lunge, both knees bent, saying hello to your quads. And then stepping back. So try whatever you did that time, try that one more time, coming either from the back of your mat to the front, turning around, coming back, or going to the front and then coming backwards back, or practicing this at a wall. So grounding through your left foot, lifting your right knee wherever you are, balancing for a moment, finding that short lunge, bending both knees. And then moving on to the next side, stepping forward or bringing your legs together, lifting your left knee, taking your time coming into that lunge. Pausing in your lunge, stepping your legs together. And then if you're traversing your mat, you're probably going to be at the end of it. And you can either turn around, go back the same way, or try moving backwards. Taking your time, really being mindful of where you are in space, being mindful of what muscles are working. Really focusing on that balance. Whenever you find yourself having completed the equal amounts of lunges on each side, or you find yourself at the back of your mat, pause for a moment in mountain. Notice how you're feeling. Notice how that went for you. And we're going to go through that again. You can do anything that you've done already, or I'm going to offer a few options that you might consider. So when you're ready, ground down to your left leg, lift your right knee. You might try stirring the pot with your right foot, and then stepping forward into your lunge, bending through your back knee and your front knee, possibly lifting your arms. Another option would be you might lower your back knee down towards the ground to any degree and then come back up for a little elevator. And then either step forward, or another option would be as you step forward, you might hover your back knee, your back foot, lifting that left knee up, pausing, and then stirring the pot with that hovering foot. And then stepping forward. Maybe trying that elevator. And then stepping forward, either putting your foot down or hovering your right foot and lifting your right knee. Again, maybe stirring the pot. And then reversing, either turning around or stepping backwards. Really paying attention to what feels useful for you here, what feels like a good challenge. Once you have traversed your mat, have explored that, pause in mountain, maybe turning your palms forward, possibly closing your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and sigh it out. Notice how your body is feeling. Can you do kind of a quick scan and notice if there are any sensations, any feelings that are really standing out to you? Maybe there are sensations of tension somewhere. Maybe something that feels good. when you're ready, you can step your feet apart just a little bit and take your time coming down into a forward fold. You might try rolling down. And if you know rolling down doesn't work for your back, maybe you come down with a flat back. But take your time coming into the forward fold that works for you. And then when you're ready, place both hands on the ground, lower one knee, and then lower the other knee. Come down onto your hips and bring your legs in front of you. You can place a cushion under your hips here. That feels supportive. Bring the soles of your feet together and allow your knees to come out to the side for Baddha Konasana. If you would like, you could interlace your hands and bring them around your toes. And you could either focus on sitting up tall or folding forward more. Option for stillness or fidgeting, any kind of movement. You could shuffle around, you could sway from side to side. You could find whatever movement suits you right now. And as you're here in Baddha Konasana, maybe look for a sensation that feels good. And if you can find a sensation that does feel good, you might consider offering it again silently internally, offering it out. But this time, if it feels like something that's doable, you might think about someone you have a complicated relationship with, maybe a slightly difficult relationship. Could you possibly offer that good feeling up and out towards that person? And it's okay if you feel like you can't. If you're folded forward, take your time coming up and make your way onto your side. So lying on your side in a way that feels supportive. So you might have your forearm down, or you might stretch your arm down and rest your head either on a pillow or on your arm. Bend your top leg, reach your top hand back, grab your top foot. So you're bending that knee, squeeze your foot in towards your butt till you can find some sort of quad stretch here. So you may or may not feel it in your quads. If you don't feel it in your quads, one option might be to flex your quads. So bringing some muscular engagement through your quadriceps, even as you're stretching them. And that can sometimes help us find those sensations. And it still may not work, but it's totally okay if it doesn't. Your quads are still being stretched, even if they don't feel like they are. Come back to your breath here if it feels okay, and take some long, slow breaths. All the way in and all the way out. And then take your time switching to the other side. So you might release that, roll onto your back and roll over onto your other side. Or maybe you sit up, spin your legs around and make your way onto the other side, grabbing your top foot with your top hand and squeezing that foot in. Think about aiming your knee down towards the bottom of your mat or away from your head, really, away from the top of your body. Can you take some long, slow breaths? Release that and decide, would you like to come onto your back for a moment or for the rest of practice? If you come onto your back, you might try pulling your knees into your chest and just rocking from side to side for a moment, or finding any other movement that feels appropriate to you right now. And once that feels complete, take your time finding a comfortable position for Shavasana. You can close your eyes, or you could just rest your gaze somewhere. And that same quote that I read at the beginning of practice, find something about you that you like and focus on that. If I don't like my face, if I don't like my skin, if I don't like my weight, I think to myself, I have nice teeth. And it may just start with that one tooth. Look at that tooth. That's a nice tooth, man. And then once you can accept that little thing about yourself, you can just accept you for who you are. Bob the drag queen. So really the whole point is just to start with something small, to find something small that's positive, that you can value about yourself or about the people around you, maybe the people around you who you find challenging. But to work towards appreciating and valuing yourself and everyone. If your mind is wandering, notice where it has wandered. Maybe take a deep breath and sigh it out. Start to find just a little bit of movement. And take your time if you're ready to come out of Shavasana, opening your eyes if they're closed, and shifting into a different position. And wherever you land, maybe bring your hands into Anjali Mudra if that feels okay. And take just a moment to find one thing about yourself that you like or can work towards liking or appreciating. And then a moment to acknowledge that the practice of yoga is a vast practice originating thousands of years ago on the Indian subcontinent, and gratitude that it was so generously shared. And thank you all for practicing with me today.